Hello, boys and girls. This is Mr. Kizik, and I wanted to give you guys another support video for finding the angles of right triangles here. Plus, also, just a little review again about finding missing sides of right triangles. So, going with the notes that you guys took here, I just made another example here. I'll show you again how to use the online calculator. So, for this one here, again, everything is in relation to the angle that's given. Now, in this case here, there is no angle per se that's given, but there is a variable with an angle. So that's what we're relating to. So, as we did before, 12 in this case here would be the opposite. And then 17 is the hypotenuse. Remember, anything opposite a 90-degree angle is always a hypotenuse, no matter what. So which trig function deals with opposite hypotenuse? That would be sine. So sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. Let's fill in the blanks. Sine of, now in this case, unlike the last lesson, we would put x, not a number, equals opposite 12 over 17. When you get to this step here, you don't need to worry about, do I need to simplify the fraction or anything? If it can be simplified, there's no reason to. Because what happens in trig is that any multiple of a fraction will always give you the same answer. All right, so now at this step here, what you want to do is basically use your calculator. What's happening in the algebra portion is this. I can't just divide each side by sine and then get x by itself. There's no such thing. But what you can do is what we call taking the inverse sine, which means this. You're taking sine to the -1 of both sides. What happens is that these two cancel, and I'm left with just x equals sine -1, 12 over 17. And now here's where the calculator comes into play. So on your calculators, depending on what you're doing here, if you're using a graphing calculator or a scientific calculator, you'll see right above your sine, cosine, tangent, it says sine -1, cosine -1, tangent -1. Well, what you have to do is press second and then the corresponding trig function, and that would get you the correct value. Now, in terms of this online calculator, again, I had questions last week about how do I know which mode I'm in. As you can see, DEG is highlighted. That's degrees, and that's what we want. So if you look at this calculator, you'll see, you might say to yourself, well, there is none of this sine -1 and all that business. There's this INV button. That's like the second button on your calculator. And as you can see, it changed it to sine -1, cosine -1, tangent -1. So I press the sine -1. Notice how it says arc sine. Inverse sine and arc sine are the same things, right? And then I just type into the calculator fraction, which was 12 divided by 17. And there you go. I got my degree measure. And rounded to the nearest tenth would be 44.9. So round it, 44.9 degrees. All right, so that's a basic general idea of how you find missing angle measures. Now, I want to show you something here, because I always get questions, how do I know if I'm trying to find an angle or side? Well, that's pretty simple enough because, well, here, my x value is an angle measure. So if I look at another example here, let's say I had these two examples. Um, Sorry, just trying to think here. Let me try this one here. 15 and x. Okay. Notice the difference between these two. Obviously, different numbers here, but the difference between what variable I'm trying to solve for. In this case here, I would have opposite and adjacent. So this would be a tangent function. But notice this setup here. Whereas this setup here, well, yes, this is opposite hypotenuse, that's sine. But look at how the setup is different here. Whenever we're trying to find an angle measure, this is when we use the arc or the inverse, whatever trig function. Whenever you're trying to find an angle. But whenever you're trying to find a side, you don't even use any of that, and you just do what you did last week, which is just using some algebra. Right? And then you would have x equals 15 sine 30. Whereas here, x equals inverse tangent of 3/4. That would be the differences between the two here. All right. So if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to message me. Like I said, you guys haven't seen